Hello, friend, and welcome back to episode number 20 of my 31-day challenge, where every day I'm answering your questions about creating a career or a business that you love. And in today's episode, I'm asking a question that I've been asked quite a few times actually since I started this, which is, should I work for myself or should I spend a year working for another company to kind of learn the ropes and learn about the industry? So be talking about that in this episode. If you've got a question, feel free to ask it to me on social media. My handle is AlexMakesVR across Instagram and Twitter. If you've got a longer question, you can send that to me in email form, alexmakesvr@gmail.com. And every single day when I put these episodes out, I send out a newsletter just to let you know that the episode's gone live and also to give you a bit of a recap of what I'm talking about in the episode. And you can sign up to that, at alexmakesvr.com. So if you were listening to yesterday's episode, you will have heard me say the word cup of tea and biscuits about 50 times. But naturally, I am recording these to break the magic. I am recording them back to back. So I do actually now have a cup of tea and a biscuit in front of me. So I'm sorry, but I might be slurping throughout this episode. And I am sorry, but I'm also not sorry because I need to be highly caffeinated to do this, basically. Not really, though, because I could literally talk about this all day, every day. It would be my favourite thing in the world. You are my favourite people in the world to talk to, so thank you for being here. Okay, shall we dive into the episode, Alex? Probably. So, should you work for yourself or should you go into another company, work for them, get access to the tech, learn the ropes, get introduced to the industry whilst getting paid? I think this is a really personal choice, and to be honest, nothing I say is going to give you a definitive, you should do X, Y, Z, or should I say X or Z. I think this is a really personal choice, and there's so many factors that come into this, right? I mean, for me personally, I have always been self-employed. I always knew that I didn't want to work for a company, and that's just the time in my life and my upbringing and being around entrepreneurs my whole life. So one day I might end up going back into a company. It'd have to be a really exciting company and the right role. But for me personally, learning by myself, learning by doing and just getting out there and making the errors and trying and testing and making my own little projects to kind of test out things and watching YouTube videos to learn how to do the tech bits and then getting out and practicing it in person. I really enjoy that. I enjoy wearing lots of different hats. I enjoy the learning process. For a long time, I was absolutely obsessed with keeping on top of every single news update that came out from the industry so that I had a really good understanding of what was happening, what the state of the landscape was. I enjoyed being my own kind of networker. I enjoyed going to the groups and being in those discussions online and going to events. And I still enjoy that aspect of running a business. Is I get to do a bit of everything and I get to pick and choose what I'm in the mood for, or I get to kind of wear different hats. So that's the ultimate benefit of working for yourself. But having said that, this all comes down to self-awareness. If you're the kind of person that will not be motivated to do all that, because realistically, what you really want to do is a very specific role in VR, whether it's you want to be a programmer, you want to be a 360 director, you want to be a business business kind of development person within the VR industry because you're fascinated by the tech. If you want to be the kind of person that gets to go to all of the events for free and write marketing pieces on them, those are very, very specific roles. And yes, if you want to do all of them, then maybe you should work for yourself because you'll get a chance to do a bit of everything. But if you want a very specific role, then maybe you should look at the VR companies around you and see if there is an opportunity to do that. Because you get to do that for one specific job that you enjoy and you get paid. one of the biggest things about work for yourself is obviously, yes, you can do what you want to do when you get to a certain level, but the first at least couple of years are a real grind. And you're going to have to do stuff you don't necessarily even want to do just to pay the bills. And one of the biggest myths, I think, about working for yourself is like, yeah, but you can do, I could take 2 months off and go on holiday, or I could just I can have a 2-day work week or a 4-hour work week if you go by the Tim Ferriss book. No. That is absolutely not the reality for 99% of freelancers, especially when you start. Absolutely not. You are working. When you work for yourself, even when you run a fairly established company and you have clients that bring you repeat work, and you know realistically that you're not going to that you're not going to starve the next month, there is always that voice in your head that is telling you that you should be going out, finding work, you should be working all the time. I think since I started Cats Are Not Peas in late 2016, I mean, I couldn't give you an exact number, but I'm fairly certain I haven't had that many weekends where I actually just fully switch off and I just don't do anything work related. I haven't done that since I started the company. I haven't probably done that since I started, working as a freelancer when I was 21. So because you are constantly, well, there's a part of it that's just because you enjoy it and because that's what you're passionate about. But also there's this part of, what if something happens, like COVID? There's a lot of my friends that are self-employed or business owners. And when COVID hit, the reality is, yes, if you're employed, there's obviously that part of you of oh crap, am I going to be made redundant? Oh, I've got no control over this situation. So to some extent, as a business owner and someone who's self-employed, you've got more room to control your own destiny, because you can decide what you want to do, and you can make your own you can make your own plans in order to get yourself in the best position possible during hard times like this. But ultimately, overnight, businesses closed down or work dried up. We had about 4 different projects, all signed off, budgets allocated, ready to go, pre-production started, and literally overnight it was like a game changer. All of a sudden we can't shoot anything. All of a sudden budgets are drying up. All of a sudden, the world goes into meltdown. And whose shoulders does that fall on to sort out? Whose burden is that to bear? That's mine. That's my responsibility. It's my responsibility to then have to, well, fortunately in my case, I still had my speaking revenue coming in, because those events just turned into online webinars and events for the first month or so. But then actually I found that for me, I really needed this time, and I had the opportunity as someone who runs my own business to be able to take a step back during this COVID stuff and reevaluate what I wanted to do, right? Which is a benefit of work for yourself, because you get to be flexible like that. You get to decide. But for the first couple of years of running my business, it was non-stop. You speak to any person that's close to me, they still rarely see me because I'm a workaholic. But for the first couple of years of my career, I would be working the equivalent of 3 people's full-time jobs. I was a machine. I just go. Don't get me wrong. I shouldn't be glamorizing that, because absolutely I have burned out several times in my short VR career. And it is not a nice feeling, and it's not healthy. And, it's absolutely not a place that you should want to get to. But sometimes the reality is, when you're starting your own thing, when you're starting your own business or freelancing, that's what it takes to get it to the level that you want it to be. Now, I had unrealistically high expectations of myself, and at some point. I'm sure there'll be some wonderful therapist that comes into my life that gets into the weeds and sorts all that out for me at some point in future. But today it's not that day. But realistically, even if you just want to replace what would be the equivalent of like a kind of average salary at an employed job, that's going to take a lot of work to begin with, because there is a lot to do in the beginning of starting a business. So if you are scared of that, if that kind of frightens you, then maybe you should look to be employed somewhere else. But I think most people in their gut know if they want to run their own show or not. And there is something, I can't describe to you the feeling of running your own thing, because then every win is yours, every loss is yours, but it's yours. You are literally taking control of your own destiny, which sounds like whimsical, and maybe it is, but there's something about that where it's like, when people kind of come to me and friends of mine and they're like, wow, you're so lucky, like look at everything you're doing, that's amazing. And I'm like, I am not lucky. I've sacrificed years of the best years of my social life to build to where I am right now, and it took a lot of sacrifice, but I loved every second of it, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I grinded so hard, but that success, that is the product of all of my hard work. Whereas if I was working for someone else, yeah, to some extent, you could maybe feel a sense of ownership over the things that you're doing. But very rarely do you get that opportunity to really fully feel like, yes, like, the highs are high and the lows are lows. When you're an employee, they're all a little bit kind of tempered by the fact that it's not really your problem, is it? Because if something goes wrong, it's not really your problem. That's the boss of the company's problem. So on the flip side, though, if you do want to work for someone else, again, really good I'm just going to have a slurp of tea before we change direction. I'm just going to hold you away a little second. I don't know what the etiquette is for podcasting, but I'm assuming slurping tea in someone's ear is probably not the nicest of thing to listen to, unless you're into some like ASMR stuff. Which may be for a different podcast. Hit me up on DM if you'd like to have an episode of me just slurping tea at you. Okay, so working for someone else then. So the benefits of working for someone else are way less risk, although I would argue that if you're working for a VR company, it's still risky, because the very nature of the fact that that company is in VR means that they could go out of business at any second. You only have to look at all the various big studios and big announcements of VR companies going under, or, kind of changing direction because they're losing money over the last kind of few years to like realize that. So it's not like a total riskless thing to go into a company as a VR employee, but the benefits are that A, it's less risky because you are going to get paid a salary. So that's really nice. You're essentially being paid to learn. Whereas when you have to learn stuff on your own, when you're working by yourself, obviously you're essentially paying yourself to learn. You're like, you might do a job that's worth $2,000, but then you spend the next week like having to upskill on something new and spending 70 hours on that. So actually you've had to pay yourself with that $2,000 to kind of learn that next thing. So it's really nice to be able to get paid to learn, basically. And if you've got a job that you enjoy, and so much of a job that you enjoy will be the people, then that can be like a really amazing thing to be around, like people with the same passion as you, with that sense of community. That's really nice. I'm not going to lie, that is the biggest drawback for me of running my own company, although I absolutely love it, because I'm not in a place where I want a physical office with lots of employees. I'm not there yet. Maybe in future, or maybe not, I'm not sure. But one of the big things that I notice is the lack of camaraderie and like being around people. Because when I like see an article come out, for example, about like I saw yesterday, the Facebook have apparently put like massive orders in for the next version of the Quest, which will probably be announced in September at OC5. Is it 5 or 6? I'm not sure. Either way, the Oculus event. that to me is like, oh, that's quite exciting. Like, and if I was in an office with people, maybe like we'd all get into a conversation about it. Or I had some store credit on my Quest actually. So yesterday I like went on there and bought some new levels on Beat Saber, and bought like downloaded Gloomy Eyes finally, because I haven't actually experienced that since seeing a very small glimpse of it at a film festival, and then it crashed. Anyway, oh god, where was I going with that? Camaraderie. Yeah, so that would be really nice to be around people, to get to kind of, be like, oh, what should we buy for the Quest? Or, oh, what are your recommendations for what I should buy? Like, that's quite nice. And I could go online and do that, and I do. And obviously that's where the episode that I did about community and the groups that I'm in, the WhatsApp groups and the Facebook groups, and all of that's where that comes to play. And that's really lovely, and that's so important for me, is having that. But having that in an office, and having like employee kind of colleagues that you work with on a consistent basis, that's like a really lovely dynamic that cannot be overstated as like one of the benefits, because friendship and the people you work with will make or break your experience at a company, basically. And then obviously the drawbacks, though, I would say, is if your aim is to go in and work at a company for a year just to learn stuff, and then you want to go out on your own, that's a little bit of a different proposition, because especially if you want to learn a technical skill, I would argue that you would learn quicker by yourself. You would learn quicker by just like getting out and doing it, and doing lots of different projects. Because the thing is, you'll go into a company, and the reality is that company, as much as they want to be the next Felix and Paul, and even Felix and Paul, I'm sure, will have some kind of commercial arm to their revenue streams. Felix and Paul, for those of you who don't know, is a brilliant cinematic VR studio that do lots of like beautiful high-end documentary and drama and Cirque du Soleil kind of experiences. They are like the masters at 360 filmmaking, so definitely check them out if you've never heard of them before. But even they will probably have to do like commercial work, or some work that brings in revenue, which is the kind of projects that most companies that you would get hired at would have to do. So actually, as much as you think you might be learning skills and refining them, maybe for the first like couple of projects, but then realistically you'd most likely be recycling the same skills over and over again for the next year. And also you might not have the opportunity to work on some kind of new stuff. You won't necessarily have the brain power when you go home after an 8 or 10 hour day to work on your own stuff. So as much as it might be nice to get paid to learn how to do some of the VR stuff and have access to kit that you then don't have to buy, which is a massive bonus for working for someone else, at the same time, will it kill your passion for it? Like, will it maybe take away from what you actually want to do, which is to get really good at being a 360 camera operator, if you're only ever working on the same shoots. So it's a real personal thing. And I think ultimately, if you're working on like the marketing and the business side, then yes, maybe going into a company is a better idea, because you're going to be paid to learn, but you're also front facing. You're going to get to be hands-on with other people in the industry. You're going to get to network. You're going to get to go to events, things like that. If you're someone who's coming in as a junior in a technical position, like an edit assistant or a production assistant or an office runner, then realistically, you're probably not going to get opportunities to learn the skills that you actually want to. Now, I could be generalizing, and obviously I have to, because I don't have a specific example here, but I would just, unless it's like a really big, cool company that would maybe give you opportunities outside of it. Like, for example, if you went into the Facebook VR department, that's slightly different, because you would probably get opportunities from that and be able to leverage the fact that you worked at Facebook for other opportunities down the line. So there's absolutely exceptions to this rule. But ultimately, I think you should just really basic, do a gut check. When you like think about the realities of working for someone else, does that excite you? When you think about working for yourself and the challenges, but the thrill of doing that kind of stuff, like going out and finding work and doing your own projects and working on lots of different things and being the master of your own destiny, does that excite you? And I think go from there. I think some people, and even one person who actually reached out to ask this question, I think after talking to her, she realised that she kind of knew after we had a little bit of back and forth that actually, no, I don't want to work for someone else. It's just that seems like the safe option. But when you dig into the weeds, actually, you know, it was actually probably going to be better for her to stay at what she's currently doing, which brings in money, and start to slowly build a side hustle in the VR and the virtual tours and the 360 videos and that kind of side of things. And then eventually that would maybe, you know, replace her salary. But that to her was more exciting. And realistically, people use... The thing is as well, it's like with the VR industry... it doesn't really matter whether you work for a company or not. You will still have the same experience in terms of like opportunities to network and getting into groups. You don't need to be in TV, for example. It's actually really hard if you don't have a way in. If you've not got an in, it's really hard to like get into those circles that you need to be in. So actually getting in by being in a company and then making friends and then using that to kind of like leverage to get into those kind of in circles, that's something that you need to do. But the VR world is so small and it exists so much online and in these grassroots events that you don't need a company to be your in with the industry. You can just rock right up in there and chat to people exactly the same. And they, you know, most people in this industry either work for themselves or do contract work where they are technically self-employed, but they'll like do stints at different companies. So everyone's in the same boat and everyone's super lovely. And yeah, there isn't really like if you're not part of, you know, XYZ company, then you're not going to be part of this event. Nah, there's none of that. So those are my general thoughts. I hope that helped. I think you listening, you know what you want to do, and don't be scared. I promise you, working for yourself or working for someone else, it's not as hard as it sounds. It might, I don't know, I think there's something around working for yourself. People are like, oh, I'm just not ready to take on that responsibility. It's like, well, I don't know. I feel like I can't get into that mindset because I just think, yeah, but the person who is running your company that you're currently employed at, they're currently the master of your destiny. They're the person that can literally change your life. They're the person that's responsible for bringing your salary in. And yes, that's a little bit more safe, but is it really? Because if they run into trouble, then they will or could potentially just overnight change your life by like cutting your salary or making you redundant or, you know, changing your job description to do something that you don't really want to do. Like, they're currently your puppet master. They dictate to you when you get out of bed and how much work you do and what you have to do. Whereas at least when you're working for yourself, yes, it's not stress-free. Yes, you won't, even when you have time off, even when you have a holiday or a weekend, even if you're not working, you're still in your head thinking about work-related stuff. It's you know, it is a 24/7 thing, but at the same time, you are then in control of what projects you take on, how much you're charging, how often you want to be working every month, where you want to work. Because so much of it is like, oh, like me personally, I'm in a phase in my life now where I'm like, actually, this remote life is actually amazing. I really want to go traveling. Bit unfortunate that we're in a global lockdown situation where no one can really travel that much. But I really want to like get out of England for a bit and go and see the world. And actually, I'm going to pivot my company to be more remote based because of that. And I have that freedom to make that decision. Whereas if I was in a job, I would have to make the painful decision of like, right, well, am I going to quit my job and not have any income for the next however many months because I want to travel? And then when I come back, am I going to be able to go back to that job, or will I have to find a new job? And so I don't really have to worry about that because I've spent years building myself kind of, I can't remember what the word is. There's like a lovely word that basically, it's like is it efficacy? I don't know. It's a fancy word for basically saying like, I'm basically in control. So I'm going to leave you on that because I think I've said I'll leave you on that several times and I've carried on talking. So this is now nearly 25 minutes long, but I hope that helped. Reach out to me. I love to hear from you. Reach out to me, Alex Makes VR on all of the socials, alexmakesvr@gmail.com. If you want to be reminded when these episodes go live, sign up to the newsletter, alexmakesvr.com. And please, whichever platform you're listening on, if you would do me a solid and either follow or subscribe, that would be amazing. And I'll speak to you tomorrow.